Welcome to the Tanya Acker Show. Welcome to the podcast, Chef Brooke Coleman. I am so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So there was a point in time where you were a homeless single mother. And you decided that you were going to change your situation. How did you end up homeless? I think that a lot of people have a lot of preconceived notions about how people end up in that situation. So just talk to us a little bit about your story. How did you end up in the situation where you were homeless with your children?
Well, initially I was younger around the time, so I still was a little spoiled living with my mom. I've always been a very hard worker, but at the time I was in the fast food industry. At the time, my mom had actually met this man in Dayton, and we were living in Columbus, and we were supposed to just go visit, family and then just come back and move. But I didn't know that she was packing up the car with all of her belongings for a different reason. And so come to find out, she had ended up eloping with this man. And she was just kind of like, well, I don't know what you're going to do, but it's time for you to grow up and you're going to have to figure things out. Maybe you can go to a shelter. They'll help you, da da da. And I was just kind of like, are you serious? Because, at the time I was just like, I don't know where I'm going to go with my son. So my dad, which lives in Dayton, he was just like, no child of mine is going to the shelter, and da, 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 da. So he had kind of took me in. But during that process, I didn't really get along with his wife at the time. And, it was a lot of ins and outs with that. But I had ended up trying to figure things out on my own. I had ended up getting this apartment. And all of a sudden, the apartment started to decay.
How old were you when all of this was happening? Because I just want to make sure that everybody is following what took you to this situation. You were how old when this happened?
I was about 23.
So you were 23. You were living with your mother. Your mother said, I'm going to get married. You're out. You're on your own. Go to a shelter. Figure it out. Your father says you can stay with me and I guess your stepmother, but you didn't get along with the stepmother. So now you are looking for a place. All right. So now we're all caught up.
When I decided to find a place, my dad was just kind of like, well, if you go out there on your own, all bets are off. I can't help you. I'm not going to take care of you, which to me was kind of understandable. But I was just like, okay, well, I have to figure this out. So I moved into this apartment. The apartment started to decay. It just started to smell real bad. It started having all different types of nets. It was just horrible. And so in the midst of me working, I was actually doing hair on the side, but that wasn't making ends meet. And so I ended up getting evicted and having to go to the shelter. So when I went to the shelter...
Did you have children at the time?
Yes, I had one. Yeah, I had one.
How old was your child, boy or girl?
He's a boy. He's 12.
Was he 12 at the time? He was 12 at the time?
No, he's 12 now. Okay. So I want to say at the time, Zion was probably 4 or 5, maybe 5. Staying in the shelter, it was just so much going on in there with different females or whatever. But they had ended up, long story short, putting me into this home where this company named Homeful put you somewhere. At the time, I will say, even though I had my son, I was also pregnant.
Was the father of the child involved at all? Did you have any contact with him?
I saw him different times, but it wasn't a good relationship at all.
And he made no offer to help or assist, knowing you were pregnant and going to a shelter?
No, I definitely had to figure things out on my own. It was a very, very hard process to go through. I was never on the street or anything like that. I refused to go from house to house or be on the street with my son. So the best thing that I could think of was to go to the shelter, which I felt like was definitely a blessing in disguise. They had ended up putting me in this apartment and they told me that I had to get my things together within 6 months. I did it in 3 months. And I went to school. I didn't even go to culinary arts at first. I ended up going to get my associate's degree. And then I was just like, this is kind of boring. I really want to do something that I really want to do. And so I ended up transferring to St. Clair and going to culinary arts from there.
That's a community college in Dayton, Ohio.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I went through that program and finished it. And then from there, I just kind of took off.
Let's talk about the move from the shelter to enrolling in school to starting your catering business. You're in the shelter with your little boy. What's it like? I think that for a lot of people who talk about this issue in the abstract and debate it and are like, we should do this or that or build more shelters or, what have you, a lot of us don't have a lot of firsthand experience about what life is like. So tell us a little bit about what it is to live in the shelter or what life was like for you in the shelter with your son.
It was extremely uncomfortable. You definitely see things every day. I will say you're in there with all different types of personalities and people, religious beliefs, and so on. And it's definitely not the prettiest sight at all. We're literally in there on cots. So, and then you have all of these mothers in here with their children, and it's like 50 billion children in there, it's 50 billion moms in there, so being through that process, it was definitely hard because of the type of background I come from. I'm the type that never walk away from anything, so it's like I was not, backing down from you talking to my son any type of way or, anything like that. I'm gonna just be honest. I was really like, this ain't what you want. You're in a situation where you can literally blow everything. They can, if you react in any type of way, they will kick you out. You will not have no type of help, or anything like that. So I found
What did
myself
this
in this.
woman say to your son? I have to ask you, what did she say to your son that brought you to a point where you were like, I really better pull it together because everything's on the line. Tell us about that situation.
My son, he was very playful, but he wasn't aggressive in any type of way. And he would run up and just be like, tag, you're it, to the other kids or whatever in a playful manner. And she was like, don't you put your hands on my effing son and, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. And I'm just like, well, wait a minute. Who are
She
you
said this to
talking
your little boy. She said,
to?
use those words to your little boy.
Yeah, and so, and I know that, you got to keep your hands to yourself, Tanya. Not everybody wants to, play tag or play, or anything like that. But it was really just mind boggling to me that she would literally say that to my son. And so I stood up and everybody was holding me back, like, Brooke, don't do this, do not do this. We know what you're capable of, but do not do this. And so I definitely had to back down from the situation, but I was pulled into the office and they were like, look, you got one more time to go off on anybody in here. I know the situations might not be your fault, but you're about to blow it, And so the lady, it just seemed like something was more so wrong with her mentally because being in a situation like that and you're smiling and and you're just kind of like, looking at her like she looked crazy. And
That's why
so,
it's dealing with those kinds of things, Brooke, and having to deal with them on a regular basis. That's what I think makes your story so remarkable. So you are now in a situation that's not just uncomfortable. It sounds like it can be at times dangerous. It can be at times potentially violent. You are not just looking after yourself. You're also looking after your little one. People don't mess around with people's kids. So you've got
yeah,
all of these things that you're trying to manage on a day-to-day basis. And in the course of that, you have the wherewithal and the presence of mind to say, I got to get out of here and make a change. So,
yeah.
how do you do that? How do you get the motivation and the resources and the information you need to go to the community college, enroll in your culinary arts program and take it from there. How do you take that next step?
I ended up doing some research on Google about getting into school. I did not know that it would definitely be beneficial in a major way because I was also taught that being in college can bring a lot of bills. It can bring a lot of stuff that you're just locked into, and stuff like that. But I thought that it was very important to do something. Once I did my research, I had went to go visit Clark State, and then that's also a community college here in Dayton, Ohio, but they have different branches that you can go to. And I think the main one is actually in Springfield. So I had went to the one that was down here in Beaver Creek. And so once I went there, I had met with a couple of people, talked about, what I wanted to major in and all that good stuff. And then I had entered into that program, but that was not really like a long period of time because I'm definitely like kind of get bored fast, So I had ended up looking into culinary arts, but I was just like, remind you, at the time I was doing hair throughout the whole time.
To support
So
yourself. So you were doing hair even while you were at the shelter, just doing hair to kind of keep it going.
I would literally leave the shelter and travel to whoever to do their hair. So I have put it up an
You must
ad
be
on
really
Craig.
good. I bet you're really good. Your hair looks great, by the way.
Hey,
But so, but you go to Sinclair, you enroll in Sinclair Community College, you study culinary arts, and then you end up going into business. How does the catering business start? And I understand that stuffed burgers were your specialty. So how do you turn this into a business? Or rather, how did you turn it into a business? Because you started a business.
Yeah. So I started selling food out of my house, literally, like I was a hustler. Okay. So I was selling food out of my home. After doing some research, I didn't know that you wasn't, quite supposed to do that, but I never really got in trouble or anything.
I was going to ask because there are so many rules that make it hard for people who are trying to just, do better to do that. Yeah. So you never got cited for anything. You didn't get into any. You never got into any trouble.
I never got in type of trouble at all, and I would just go all day and night selling food.
Who did you sell to? So who were your customers? Were you just knocking on the door? Hi, try my stuffed burgers. How did you get your product out there?
So what I did was me and my son, we had went around the entire neighborhood where I had ended up moving to at the time, and we put flyers in their mailboxes. People that would open the door like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I would just basically kind of tell them, what I'm doing, and they would look at the menu and they would just be like, "Oh wow, this looks really good." On top of me doing that, I had ended up just posting on Facebook, social media, and getting it out there, starting a business page, getting that out there. And so next thing you know, I was doing that before I had actually even started selling the stuffed burgers. So before I started selling it, I went all over the place, put up flyers. I went to the fire department, gave them a flyer. I went to hair salons, barber shops, tattoo shops, everywhere I went to, and I gave them a flyer with the menu on it. By the time I opened, my phone was ringing back to back to back to back.
Jeff B. She was out there with the hustle. You're out there with the hustle. So, I just want to. I'm interrupting just to recap because I want people to. I want to make sure people are following along with your extraordinary story. So you go from the shelter to an apartment. This organization gives you 6 months to become self-sufficient after giving you and your son a place to live. You doing hair and then making food, but then actually building your catering business before you actually start making the food, because smart businesswoman, make sure you have customers and make sure there's a demand before you go out there, spending money on what you're doing. So you build a demand for the catering business. You then establish the catering business. And so that by the time you open up, you've got essentially a line out the door.
Yes. And that's exactly how it was. And what I had to do was I had did a delivery. Sometimes I have people pick up, but I did delivery, and I would literally make their food, and I would pack my son in his car seat, put Zion in his seat, and I would literally go and deliver these meals to whoever ordered. So it was a lot. It wasn't like I had somewhere for my kids to go, and that was not going to be an excuse for me not to make any money, So I would definitely pack my kids up and deliver everywhere. So
And
yeah.
then you actually go from having this catering business to a brick and mortar restaurant. You open a restaurant. What was the name of your restaurant, Chef B?
Stuffed enough.
Stuff Enough, after the stuffed burgers. Are you going to
Yes.
share a stuffed burger recipe with me, or is it a big secret? I know, like, even if you give me the recipe, I will not do it as well. It will not be as good, so you don't have to worry. But I'm interested in the concept. So
I will.
then you're going to
Yes.
share the recipe? May I have?
Yes. Yes.
Chef B. Okay. I'm going to try to make it, and then I'm going to report back to you.
Okay.
So then you open up the restaurant, and then COVID happens. How does the pandemic impact your business?
Yeah, it was like probably around 4 months after I had opened. COVID had hit strong. Like nobody wanted to work. Nobody wanted to come in and do anything. Like my restaurant used to be packed from wall to wall. And then when you look up, and it's literally like hardly nobody ever coming. I mean, it would still be some, groups of people here and there. And then I had put up a law where I had to take the food outside, to them. They could just place the order, So after a while, it just had ended up not really turning out what I expected it to be. And I could not hang in there. I tried to hang in there. I tried to do all that I could, but it just was not working.
So, what were your next steps? What happens next then?
So before I had ended up closing, I want to say I had caterings lined up where I was booked almost for the entire year. So that was a blessing after I had closed. So once I had started, doing all the caterings, I was just like, I think that I just want to do caterings. I don't think that I want to do kitchens or anything like that anymore, or meals on demand or anything like that, because I was kind of scared. I don't like to fail. I don't think nobody does. I had ended up doing all these caterings, and then I started getting calls for travel caterings and all that good stuff. So this business has definitely been a business where I don't have to work for anybody else. I can just work my business, and we will all be okay.
Post pandemic, what you've really done is pivot toward pop up restaurants, and you've continued the catering. And as I understand it, you had a client, some very famous celebrity athletes for whom you catered. And then that gave, I don't know if you can name names, I'll leave that to you, but I will say that I understand that business, that arrangement gave your business yet another breath of fresh air. So tell us about that.
So I had a family that actually lives in Dayton, Ohio. They had booked me to come and cater for their family vacation for 5 days in Destin, Florida. So when I went out there, first of all, I've never seen nothing like that in my life. And I was just like, oh my gosh, look at the ocean. My best friend had went with me, and we had drove from Dayton to Florida. And so it was a breeze though. But once we got down there, I ended up doing my first couple of days with them. And then me and my best friend, we had ended up going to this bar called the Boathouse Bar and Oyster Grill. And so when we went there, it seemed like everybody was just like, who are they? Because we were just live, and my best friend, she will get on stage in a minute and start singing. These guys had end up coming up to us, and they were like, who are you guys? Once he came up to us, and we had just kind of told them, like, what we were doing. My best friend was like, she's a celebrity chef. She's down here from Ohio. They booked her to cook. Before I can even say anything. Now, I was not even a celebrity chef yet. but
Right. But your girl
but
was like, let me tell you, she is a celebrity chef. At least she will be one day. Y'all treat her like she's a celebrity chef right now. As far as you're
right,
concerned, she's a celebrity chef. That's a best friend for you. That's a best friend.
that's it. That's it. So the guys were like, wow, well, can you come and cook for us tomorrow? And I was just like, yeah. But we were all, filled with spirits. So, I just thought that, he was just talking. And next thing you know, the next day came and I'm starting my day and I had to do them breakfast and dinner. When I got done, before I had got done with the family, we had actually ended up going through a break period where we had ended up going on a boat to parasail. And in the midst of me on the boat, I didn't even know my phone would ring in the middle of the ocean. But it ended up ringing, and it was the guys like, hey, can you really cook for us today? And I was just like, yeah, absolutely. Now, I didn't know who these guys were. I had no idea who they were. And I was just like, yeah, absolutely. So they ended up sending me a deposit right then and there, and they had asked me for some of my background or whatever. So I had just kind of sent them the article that was sent out on me, and they were just like, "Whoa, you are amazing! Your story's inspiring." Da 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 da. So I'm like, "Thank you." So we get off the boat, we're done parasailing. I go finish the family, and we instantly go to Walmart right after that to get all of the things that they wanted. We had ended up going over there, and on the way over there, I was like, "What if this is a setup?" Like, I'm so scared, you know. So
What if
before we,
they're going to kill us? What if they're going to
yeah,
kill us? We're going to be on the news.
yeah, I was. My best friend was like, "Girl, I got you," you know. So I'm like, okay. So we get out. They meet us at the gate. It's this huge mansion. Like I was just like, whoa. So as soon as we walked in, everybody came out, helped us with the groceries. We walked right in, and they're just like, come on, make yourself comfortable. I'm like, okay. I got the cooking and doing what I do best. They were just like, had all gathered around in the kitchen, and they were just like, Chef B has an amazing story to tell. And can you, if you don't mind, can you kind of give us, some of your story? And so I started telling them. In the midst of me telling them, I started crying. They started crying. And
Wow.
it was just like very, very emotional. He was like, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. We are what you just cooked for a lot of blue check marks on Instagram with millions of followers. He was like, you have professional athletes standing here in this room. And I about passed out, but I'm really glad that they didn't tell me that beforehand because I would have been like extremely nervous. But yeah, come to find out they're professional athletes, and I had end up looking them up on Instagram, and it was true. And they shared me, they promoted me, like they put me on their story on their page, and that was just amazing to me.
That's incredible. I right now am looking and talking to Chef B, who went from
Mhm.
homelessness to a business to a thriving catering business. And now I understand you've got a cookbook out,
Yeah,
and you put those pieces together. I'm sorry, say again?
it's coming.
Coming. You've
I'm
got an
finished.
upcoming cookbook. So you really are a reminder that it is possible to change a situation. What I want from you, or to just get more information from you about, Brooke, is what you want the rest of us to know. Homelessness is a situation it's a condition that's important to me. I work with organizations that try to combat it. It's important to a lot of people who I know. Like, I live in Los Angeles. The problem here has really exploded. I think that there's often a little bit of callousness toward it. And I'm not, excluding myself from that. I mean, sometimes you get so used to seeing something horrible that you assume it must always be like that. And I think it's
Yeah.
important to remember that the horrible stuff we see does not have to remain as it is. So, from your
Yeah.
perspective, having lived what you lived and changed your situation as you did, what is something that you want the rest of us to know? And what is something that you think the rest of us should be doing? Where should we be focusing our resources, our energy, our time? For those of us who really believe that there has to be a way out of tens of thousands of people living on the
Yeah.
streets in a country as wealthy as ours, what, from your perspective, are the best sorts of solutions that you think will help people do exactly what you did?
Okay, so I would definitely say anybody that's in any type of struggle, that you have to understand that it is temporary, but it's only temporary if you decide to get up and change it. Nothing is going to be handed to you. You definitely have to work hard, and you definitely have to keep pushing, regardless if you have children or not. You have to keep pushing. It's definitely not easy sometimes, but it's not worth giving up at all. So stay in the fight for sure. There is a better side. Okay. Also, I would like to say that if you are in any type of situation where you don't have any help, do not be ashamed to go get help. There's definitely a lot of places and resources that can definitely help you for sure. Never stop working, even if you don't feel like giving up, even if you don't feel like getting up. Definitely get up and go to work, regardless of what you are doing. What you should be doing is definitely never giving up, for sure. So stay in there. If you want to be a chef or you want to cook, you have a dream to cook, definitely go to school for it. Being a culinary arts does not teach you how to cook, but it does teach you very important
How
things
can other
that you need to know.
people, how can the rest of us better help folks who are homeless end up where you are? How do we help them make that step? What are the resources that, in your view, would better enable people to do what you've done?
So it really starts with them. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it doesn't take another person to tell them what they need to do. Sometimes it starts within them. Like they have to make the decision that you no longer want this to be your life, and take those steps. I found myself blaming a lot of other people for where I was at, blaming my mom, and stuff like that. But to be honest, it wouldn't have it. The situation that I went through would never cause me to be where I'm at today, because I had to go through something, to get to where I'm at. I would have continued to be asking my mom for money. I would have continued to live in her house. I would have continued to just be comfortable in that situation, you know. But I had to go through something in order to make me who I am today. So it's not anybody's fault or anything that somebody might be in that situation. So they just have to make that decision for themselves.
Well, you certainly are an inspiration to me and to so many other people. You are an example of the fact that you can change a bad situation, you can pivot, you can turn things around. And even if you don't make stuffed burgers and you can't cook like Chef B, you can find something. Everybody has some talent, some gift, something to offer the rest of us. Chef B, tell people where they can find you and where they can find your food. And we'll, of course, make sure that we put that up. But tell folks, and we know you've got the cookbook coming up, but tell us
Yes.
before you go where we can find and sample your tasty delectables.
You definitely want to look me up on, well, social media. IG is stuffed three nuff. Nuff is NUFF, and then it's underscore Chef B. On Facebook, you can find me at Stuffed Enough LLC. Stuffed Enough is one word. STUFFED ENUFF. And then I will pop right on up. And then also, the name of the book is called From Section 8 to Six Figures, the recipe. So definitely keep an eye out for it. I'm very excited.
Okay, that is the best title ever. It's always good to have a title that explains, what the book's about so people know it right immediately. But
Yes.
that is such a great title, From Section 8 to Six Figures. That is Chef B. When is the book going to be out?
So I don't have a specific date yet, but it's going to be a very, very important book
I'm going to be like your
because
best friend right now. I'm going to be your best friend. It is going to be a very important book because if you've been listening, Chef B knows what it is to go from homelessness to having a thriving business. So her new
uh,
book that is coming out, it is going to be a very important book. No, I haven't read it yet, but trust me, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. How did I do, Chef B? I'm not as good as your real best friend, but I will promote you because I think you were really onto something special.
thank you. You did excellent.
I hope you will come back. Thank you so much
Yes.
for honoring me with your presence and telling your story. And like I said, you're an inspiration. Keep it up. And we will make sure that people know how and where to find you. Good luck to you.
Thank you.